Loves, I am so excited to be bringing you the very first episode of the Heroine's Path. I want to start this podcast with a small celebration. I woke up this morning not feeling particularly amazing. I've just come towards the end of my period and I was feeling a bit tender and a little bit in need of some love. And of course, I had all the usual thoughts of should I just take the day off? Should I just stay in bed, stay cozy? But I didn't. I decided to bring some self love into my life. I decided to really anchor in to what I know makes me feel really, really good. I spent the morning working out, doing some journaling, getting a healthy food shop, took some time over my skincare, had a nice warm shower, and spent some time afterwards really massaging my moisturizer in. Just sent loads of love to myself. And then I pulled a card. I haven't actually pulled cards in ages. It was a really beautiful reading from my Rumi deck, which is one of my favorite card decks. So, my small celebration is I'm showing up to you for the very first episode, other than the trailer, of the Heroine's Path. And I'm showing up a little bit tender, not feeling like my bougie and best self, which is probably going to come next week when I ovulate. So watch out for that episode because it will probably be a completely different energy. But the reason I wanted to celebrate this more importantly is because I actually think this is perfect. I think the way that this has unfolded has been completely and utterly perfect. And the reason for that is I am such a huge advocate and believer that we need to normalize showing up to life, showing up to our commitments, showing up to our friends, fellow sisters, inside of our relationship, with our clients. We need to normalize showing up in every emotion, in every feeling, in every move and facet of our being. Sometimes, if we want to show up feeling super bougie, queen like, totally on game, then that's amazing. And that's going to be so inspiring and so motivating for the people who cross your path that day. But if you're like me today and you're feeling a little bit tender, a little bit in need of some love, just feeling a little bit quieter than usual, then that's perfect as well. Yeah. And when we cross people's paths, we show up and we allow ourselves to be seen and we don't hide away and just write the day off completely. Then it also gives a huge permission slip to all of you guys listening and to anybody that crosses your path. And it's like, oh, you know what? Yeah, it's okay for me to show up even when I'm not feeling like my fullest, most loud, most wild self. Even when I'm feeling a little bit quiet and a little bit tender, it's still okay for me to show up that way. So that's why I'm actually thinking this is the perfect start to our podcasting journey together, because I am going to hold space for you to show up in this space and in any of my spaces. If you enter any of my courses, any of my group containers, or even become a one-to-one client or interact with me on Instagram, wherever you decide to come and say hi to me or work with me, I am such a huge permission slip for showing up in every mood, every feeling, every emotion. Another one that I could have mentioned is anger as well. We're so desensitized to anger. Now, I'm not talking about projection and blame, I'm talking about sacred rage. And this is something that I'll get onto in later episodes. But I've only got your ear for the next 20 to 40 minutes. So I don't want to waste too much time going into different emotions because that's a whole nother episode in and of itself. And I have some really, I've got really itchy ear. I don't know if you guys get that, but I get really itchy ears. I don't want to waste too much time going into emotions. That's a whole nother episode. I've got a really juicy introductory episode planned for you. And I want to start laying some foundations. laying some foundations of what we're going to be working through, what we're going to be focusing on, and also why I've called this podcast Heroine's Path. I feel like heroine's probably not a word that is really used that much, I don't think. We do hear a lot of things online about queen, goddess, those sorts of words do get thrown around a lot. But heroine is one that I absolutely love. And the reason for that is because I came to the word heroine through more of the geeky stuff that I'm into, to be honest. I am super into mythology and kind of mythological analysis as well. So obviously I do enjoy reading myths just as stories and fairy tales as stories, but even more deeply, I love to read psychoanalysts or authors who deconstruct myth and who show us the meaning behind the myth and show us what the myth represents in terms of the human psyche. Many of you may know, but some of you may not, that I have a degree in anthropology. So I have always been absolutely fascinated by the study of humans, human behavior, what it means to be human, tradition, culture, meaning. All of those things, ritual, ceremony, all of those things are absolutely fascinating to me. And myth is something that I've always been interested in ever since I was younger. And so that is my geeky topic of choice. Now, obviously, the word hero is often brought up in myths. Heroine, not so much. We don't have as many heroines to look up to, but I believe that we are here to change that, right? We are here to become the heroines of our own lives. And so, a little bit later on in the episode, I am going to give you my definition, what I believe it means to be the heroine of your own life. And so that we can walk the heroine's path together, knowing and being completely grounded in the clarity of what this journey actually is all about. So, whether or not you want to stick around for it, right? Whether you know that this is the podcast for you. But I am hoping that after listening to the trailer and arriving here for the first episode, that you are meant to be here and are here for everything I'm going to share. So, I want to start with a little bit of cultural context, okay? So, why we're here, why we need podcasts like this, why we need to be doing this work. And when I say this work, I am talking about inner work. Inner work looks like shadow work. So it looks like deconstructing the parts of ourselves that we have disowned and disorientated ourselves from, and that then come round into our existence and start to cause chaos and destruction. That looks like where we might be blaming other people, where we might be judging other people, where we might be projecting our own fears onto other people. Inner work also looks like inner child work. So getting to know the child within, really cultivating a relationship with the little small version of you, the version of you who's actually stuck in time back when you experienced any trauma with a big T, or even just traumatic events, trauma with a small t. We have all experienced some level of trauma in our lives, traumatizing experiences. And those are the cause of the patterns that keep us stuck in self sabotage, keep us stuck behind these inner glass ceilings, if you like, these blocks that prevent us from moving forward and becoming the biggest, fullest, most authentic, most powerful version of ourselves, and creating the life that we deeply desire and that we actually deserve. But it's our own blocks that stop us from accepting and coming to that realization. And so we keep ourselves stuck. It looks like figuring out where your ego might be running the show. That's a little bit of shadow work, but the ego takes over when we are not in relationship with the soulful part of ourselves. And there's a huge theme of spirituality that runs through my work. Anybody that comes into my spaces tends to have had a spiritual awakening of some sort, or at least be interested in a more spiritual, more deeply connected way of life. Some women are really into manifestation, other women are really into the divine feminine. You know, it really doesn't matter which angle you come at this work from. All that matters is that you are here, you're open, you're ready and willing to learn. You're ready and willing to look within, to really be transparent and honest with yourself. And you're ready to take radical responsibility for your healing, for your experience of reality, not reality itself, just for your experience of reality. And you're ready to take the next bold step into the woman that you desire to be. Now, this is where a lot of us get stuck, is becoming the woman that we desire to be. And the reason for that is because women in general, you may feel like you're alone. And I totally understand that. You know, I have felt like I'm battling my way uphill so many times, more times than I can even count or even tell you about right now. But I have, do you know what? I'm going to put some essential oil on just because I feel called. And I'm going to go with pettigrain, because pettigrain is the oil of ancestry. And we're actually about to talk about a little bit of feminine ancestry. So that makes complete sense. And now I know why I felt called to put it on. I actually love essential oil. Like, I'm obsessed with it. I love, like, some people are really into crystals, and I do have crystals and I do love them, but there's just something about the experience of essential oil. I just find it's like it can just really evoke like different moods and different feelings and different environments. I don't know, kind of makes me feel like I'm in like a temple or something. And this is how I imagine this podcast to be, by the way. Like, we are just sat around an altar in a temple. There are rose petals, there's incense lit, and we're just talking the talk. We're women sharing. We're women sharing codes with each other. We're women helping each other out by sharing stories. We're sharing vulnerably. Yeah, we're really doing the work to take responsibility. We're not blaming. We're not remaining in victim mode. We're not remaining in that princess mode. Yeah. We're all on our journey to becoming a full, whole, integrated queen or integrated heroine. So, as I was saying, women are now at a place in society, in the world, where we actually have more freedom, more power, more ability to choose the life that we want than we ever have before. We really do have more freedom and more options available to us than we've ever had before. And if you think back to the feminine experience thousands of years ago, and I'm talking 5,000 years plus, women were seen as goddesses. Women were seen as the goddess incarnate, the goddess living on this planet. Because when other humans looked at women, they saw the portal of creation. They saw the death rebirth cycle that was mirrored in nature. They saw that happening in women's bodies every month through their period and their bleed, to ovulation, to pregnancy, to birth, the incubation of the baby, the birth of the baby, life, death, everything that happens in nature, all of those feminine codes are literally existing and mirrored in the body of the feminine, in the body of the woman. So thousands and thousands of years ago, and the very first art that humans even found were small, very voluptuous little figures. They're called Venus figures, Venus figurines. They're very voluptuous, massive breasts, kind of big round tummy, big round belly. They often don't have heads, which is a bit disconcerting, but it really is just the honor of the feminine form, the honor of the life, death, life cycle. And then when the patriarchal system started to come in, that was about 5,000 years ago. We're looking at like ancient Greece, that kind of era, where we started to get a hierarchy of men over women. And women started to have to align themselves with men so that they could survive. Okay, they had to basically align themselves with a husband, or they were the property of their father and their older brothers, if they had any. And they were only powerful insofar as they were connected to a man. And that system of power has been going on for, like I say, 5,000 years or so. Right the way up, you see it all through the 20th century. In the 1950s, we still had that very much kind of traditional wife stays at home, takes care of the household, and the father or the man goes out to work. And that brings us right up to about the middle of the 20th century. And all the way through, women's North Star has been simply to survive, simply to make it so that their children can get through to the next generation, to keep their children alive, to try to keep themselves alive, and to try and hope and pray for a better life for the generations ahead. And that happened for thousands of years. The goddess cultures were forgotten about. Goddess worship went underground, was completely forgotten about, and left back in the dusts of time. Now, of course, there were goddesses in ancient Greece, for example, in the Celtic traditions, pagan traditions, there were goddesses. But the way that society had started to form, particularly as the Roman Empire took over the world, that kind of first roots of Western civilization was very much built on a patriarchal system where men were in charge. And obviously, that was the foundation for our culture today, for our society today. And so you can easily see how those roots have really taken hold all the way through to, like I say, the middle of the 20th century. And in the middle of the 20th century and around the 1960s to 70s, we get the feminist revolution. And the feminist revolution, or the women's movement, was when women started to rise up and they started to claim a new reality for women. And it's from this time that we got women's liberation. We got more reproductive rights. We started to develop the contraceptive pill. Domestic violence was looked at, maternity leave was looked at, equal pay, equal rights for women in terms of work was looked at. And also, there was a new spotlight on sexual violence and harassment as well. So we got so many amazing cultural and social gifts from the women's movement, from the women's liberation movement. And during that time, women really responded to the past 5 or so thousand years of being second citizens to men and having such a limited role and view of what we could do in society. They started to react to that by taking on the only system of power that they could see, which was the masculine system of power. Masculine system of power was what was society was built on. It's what the men in their lives were wielding. And so they looked at that and they thought, yeah, I want a piece of that pie for myself. I think I want to grab hold of some of that masculine power. And it makes complete sense. Of course, if you were disempowered and you were a second rate citizen, you had the opportunity to rise up and take some of the power that was available to you at the time. Of course, you would do that. And so we owe such a huge debt of gratitude to the women who put themselves forward and really pushed that campaign forward back in the 1960s and 70s. And to be honest, ever since then. However, we have got to a point where we've really pushed that as far as it can go. We've really pushed that masculine system of power to its limits. And I want to talk to you about something called Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Now, you may or may have not heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs. Anybody who's a coach who's listening and has done a certification will probably have come across this, but you may have seen it in a self-development book. Who knows? You just might have seen it. Now, Maslow's hierarchy of needs is like a triangle. I want you to imagine a triangle with then different segments going up the triangle. And those segments start at the bottom with our most basic human needs, the most basic human needs of your environment. And obviously, that looks like literally food. Sorry, not your environment, your body, your physiological needs. That literally looks like food, water, sleep, being able to go to the bathroom, being able to breathe, having sex. Those are like the totally basic physiological needs of a human being. And as long as those are met, you can move up to the next section. Now, the next section is the environment section. This is all about safety. So this is like having a home. This is having your family around you, that feeling and sense of belonging. This is having your health. Of course, your health is so important. If you don't have your health, you don't have anything else, right? So it's having a home, it's being healthy, it's maybe having a job or having a basic level of income, and it's having your family around you. And if you have all of those needs met, you can move up to the next level of needs. And this is where we start to look at love. And that really is like the love of your family. So you'd hope that if your needs are met in terms of just having family members, then you can move on to more of that loving relationship with your family. This is where we would also count friendship, relationships, partnerships, sexual intimacy, romance. These are all of those loving needs that need to be met to be able to move on to the next level, according to Maslow. And I kind of like it. So we're going with it today. We're rolling with it. The next need is self-esteem. So this is where your ego starts to get developed, right? And of course, self-esteem looks like confidence. It looks like getting the respect of other people. This is where the masculine system of power is really, really good. Actually, this is about as far as it can get you. It gets you achievements. It gets you things in the real world, like tangible, more money, more status, more power and respect in terms of being able to use your will to shape your reality, right? So once you get to self-esteem, that's about as far as the masculine system of power can take us. And this is where women are right now. We've been able to come to such a privileged and such an incredible moment in history where all of our needs are met. All of our needs are met. And like I said, our ancestors, the women in your lineage, the women who literally fed and clothed their children in the hopes that they would go on to then have children, all the way down to the fact that you are here. Do you know, I actually saw something on Instagram the other day that I loved, which was like ancestral mathematics. And I think it was something like, yeah, like 16, it only takes 16 generations for you to have something like 4,500 ancestors. Like it multiplies so quickly. Once you go beyond great grandparents, which you would have, oh God, no, this is maths now. 8? I want to say you have 8 sets of great grandparents. Yeah, because you have, oh God, no. No, you have 2 sets of grandparents. So you have 4 sets of great grandparents. Yeah. And then 8 great great grandparents. Okay, cool. Oh my God. Showing that my one of my weaknesses here. I definitely am that person that always just uses a calculator, even for like the most basic of maths. So you'll have to excuse me. 8 sets of great, right? So even, but that's only 3 generations. You've already got 8. Then you imagine going up again and then again and then again. It gets to 4,500 in like 16 generations. And I was just like, isn't that incredible? 4,500 people had to come together, go through challenges, find food, get jobs, make money, be safe, not get hit by a car. All of these like random things had to be so in alignment just so that you could be sat there listening to this podcast right now. Like we're so deeply connected to our ancestors, but in our society, in our culture, like it's just not a thing. Like I couldn't even tell you all of the names of my great grandparents, like off the top of my head. I couldn't even tell you. So it's like, that's me holding my hands up. It's like we're so disconnected from our ancestors because people are living longer and obviously people are having children much later now as well. It means that we're meeting less and less of our ancestors in real life, but we're not honoring the stories and the experiences of the elder generations. Do you know, yesterday I popped around with my brother and his wife to our neighbour's house. She invited us around for some drinks, in her 90s. And we were a bit like, oh, okay, we'll go do our neighborly duty. But we were kind of looking forward to just like hunkering down and watching a movie. And I'm so, so glad that we went. I can't even tell you. I'm so glad that we went. It was the nicest, most wonderful experience. Our other neighbor, who's a woman again in her 90s, came round, and just the stories and the things she was sharing. She was sharing with us that she used to stand outside shops when people were still in top hat and tails and horse-drawn carts, right? Horse-drawn carriages in the place where we live, because she's lived here literally her whole life. And like, to know that somebody has, that's not that they've seen a movie, like that was their real life, that was their reality. And they've seen everything change, just the wisdom and the codes that older women and older men have. And that's what's missing from our society, is that connection to the elder generations and ritual and rites of passage and initiation. And so that's what I think we need to bring back. We'll talk about all of that more another time, for sure. But as I was saying, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we're now at a point where all of our needs have been met. We've been able to get our physiological needs met, no problem. Food is accessible in the click of a finger. We're pretty much all able to get our safety needs words. We're pretty much able to get our safety needs met. We're able to get our love needs met. If we're not in partnerships, we've usually got friendships or family, or we've got friends who have become family, or of course partnerships, but not everybody's in a partnership. I am currently flying solo and very, very happy to be self-partnered right now. We've got our self-esteem needs, okay? We're able to get jobs, we're able to achieve, we're able to get paid very, very well. There are opportunities where women are able to really achieve all the goals that they set out to do, to get the respect from other people, to get the respect of ourselves. Now, the next stage up is what Maslow calls self-actualization. Self-actualization. And I absolutely love this part of the triangle. This is like the top. There's also another little one just above this one. But for now, let's imagine this is the top of the triangle. This is where I love to play. This is where I love to bring my clients up to. This is where I spend my days. I am moving beyond just simple achievements. Like, I desire more. I desire so much more. I'm that woman, and I'm sure so many of you are as well, where I achieved goal after goal after goal. I made really good money in corporate. I was able to go on holiday whenever I want. I could buy any clothes I desired. I could go out for dinner every night of the week if I wanted to. You know, I really achieved that self-esteem, success level of the triangle. But there was this little urge, this little desire in me, this little impulse that was like, more, more, more. And that was the call of my soul. When I worked in corporate, it was like I was using my mind, I was using my hands to type into spreadsheets and write emails, but I wasn't using my heart and my soul. And after a while, after all of the achievements have been done, there's this next urge. And that urge isn't up in your mind. That urge is down in your heart space. It's down. It lives in your womb. It lives down deep. It lives in your pussy. You know, it's the part of you that's like, no, I still want more. I still see more for myself. Maslow defined self-actualization as to be self-fulfilled, the tendency for the individual to become actualized in what their potentiality is. This tendency might be phrased as the desire to become more and more of what one is, to become everything that one is capable of becoming. It's a desire, that leads to you becoming the fullest, most expansive, most authentic, most powerful version of yourself. Now, for us to be able to self-actualize, for us to be able to play at the level of destiny, because that's what this is, where we're deeply creative, where we're spontaneous, where we are in full acceptance and surrender, and yet we are consciously creating our reality, where we're offering our soul's gifts out into the world, literally giving what's ours to give, taking what is naturally and rightfully ours, the talents and the creative sparks that are our birthright. And mine just happens to be inspiring and igniting and leading and motivating and empowering women. And I do want to work with men eventually too. I definitely see myself going in that direction. But for now, it's women. But it might be that you're an incredible painter. It might be that you're a wordsmith and that you're an amazing poet. It might be that you're really amazing at coding and that you can code new apps and new programs that help to bring more opportunities to the world. Whatever your divine gift is, you 100%, 1011%, you have a divine gift that was placed inside of you before you were even born. And that is your song to sing. That is your song to sing out into the world. Now, if you want to play at the level of destiny and you want to give your soul work into the world and manifest a reality where you can not only give that to the world, but you can get paid for giving that to the world. And not only that, but you don't have to sacrifice love and relationships and vulnerability and intimacy for that success. Or vice versa, you don't have to sacrifice your soul work and your success for the sake of being in a relationship or having intimacy or love in your life. Because that's the double bind that women are in. It's like we're pushing that top level of the triangle and we're like tapping on the self-actualization ceiling and we're like, but I've always been taught that if I'm going to be successful, it means that I can't really have love. And if I'm going to have love, then I can't really be successful. And this is this double bind that we need to break through together. And the women that are able to break through, the women that are able to reclaim our feminine energy, our feminine nature, our feminine essence, but not in the way that feminism sees it, right? It's like the irony is feminism cuts us off from our feminine nature in the name of feminism. Right? That's the irony, is that we're actually cut off from what it means to be a feminine being because we've put on this suit of armor. We've put on this power suit, these shoulder pads, this power suit, right? This cape, whatever manifestation in your mind, the sort of superhero mythic woman who's able to do it all and be in the boardroom and get everything she wants. And she's not weak. She's not repressed. She's not emotional, because that's what we're taught is what the feminine means. We're taught weakness. We're taught instability. We're taught manipulation. We're taught that it's unreliable and unprofessional and that it won't get you anywhere. And that you need to go out and seize the day and grab the opportunities by the balls and so on and so forth. And we've done that. And we've made the money and we've had the success. And we're here like, why do I feel really burnt out? Why do I feel exhausted? Why don't I feel like I can charge what I'm worth from the work that is deeply soulful to me and is the expression of my creative gifts and is serving the world? By the way, service is key when it comes to self-actualization. You move away from just material success for material success's sake and you move into service. Now, that's not to say that we become martyrs and victims who are just, oh, I'm here to help everybody. And no, don't worry, you don't need to pay me a penny. It's not that at all. We move into a space of service where we are deeply respected and well compensated for the soul work that we offer out into the world. And We don't have to sacrifice our relationships, the love, the intimacy, the vulnerability in our lives either. And so, my loves, this is the path of the heroine. This is the path of the heroine. We're basically carving a brand new path for ourselves. It's like we're looking at this forest or this jungle, and there are these plants high as taller than you. There's no path. We literally have to stomp our way through. We have to tear some of these plants down, make our own path. We're heading into the darkness. We're heading into the darkness, trusting one another. And I'm at the front here leading and guiding, but I'm almost just in the dark as you are. I just a further few steps ahead. And I have some more codes and some more wisdom. And to be honest, it's because I go out, I make mistakes, I live my life, I learn and embody those lessons. And then I integrate them and I digest them into teaching. And then I serve them out into the world, which is what this podcast is. It's an opportunity for me to serve you deeply and wholeheartedly and from the center of my being, with leaving nothing on the table, and just leaving an opportunity and an invitation to step further into my spaces if you desire to do so. So this is the thing, right? We're carving a new path. We're blazing a new trail. We're moving from just achievements, just self-esteem. We're moving up into self-actualization, where we want to fulfill our destinies. We want to become everything that we know that we can be. Okay. And so the old story of success for women is over. That the world that we want to see doesn't actually exist yet. It's starting to be. There are definitely little divine feminine women, awakening women coming online all over the world. And my mentors and their mentors and I are still awakening women. We're never fully awakened. We're always awakening. We can never fully reach awakened. And if we think we have, then we have gone back to sleep. We are always awakening. Some of us have just devoted our lives to it in a more dedicated way. And some of us feel that we're here to teach others as well. And you might be one of those people, or you might not. And that's perfect too. You can just show up and receive, integrate what you need, and take it back into your day-to-day life, knowing that you can be more empowered and more fully yourself with this knowledge and this wisdom. But whoever you are, and I see you and I hear you and I feel you, more importantly than anything, I feel you in my field, and I'm touching my womb as I do so, because I truly believe that we are all connected through our womb spaces as women. And I know that you have done the best with what you've been given. And so I don't want you to blame yourselves. I don't want you to feel like, oh, like, why hasn't my manifestation showed up in my life yet? Why have I not been able to quit my job and do what my soul calls me to do? Why haven't I met my soulmate yet? I've been dating and dating and dating, and he's not there, or she's not there. And I just want you to know you're not alone. You have been living a life where you've been handed a rule book, and the rule book is only half complete. There are pages ripped out. You haven't been given the full story or picture. You've done the best with what you've been given. But the masculine power structure that you've been playing with, that I was playing with, that left me burnt out and extremely unhealthy and unhappy, that is only going to get us so far. That's good when we want to achieve tangible goals, when we want to run a marathon or build a house or take really defined linear action. But the masculine can only create with what it already has. So it needs new life force, new energy sort of pumped into it, if you like, time after time after time. And that's where the feminine comes in. And the feminine isn't weak. The feminine isn't manipulative. The empowered feminine is strong. The empowered feminine is creative. She's chaos. Yes, she's energy. She's swirling at her core. She's movement. She's dancing. She is where all of the potential for your creativity and your manifestation lies. And once you've tapped into that portal, once you've tapped into the endless potential there, the endless possibilities for your life, then and only then do you reintegrate the masculine to take the defined action that you need so that you can create deep, sexy, intimate love that meets you on every level, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually. Whether you're in a relationship or not, you can evolve your relationships to becoming growth orientated and deeply vulnerable and intimate and sexy. Yeah, polarity is something we're going to play with a lot in this space. And at the same time, if you feel called to a greater purpose and you want to be well compensated for that, then this is the way that you're going to be able to do it, by moving through from achievements, from that masculine system of power that leaves you feeling burnt out and drained, through into a beautifully integrated feminine system of power where you've got a healthy masculine backing you up. We're not completely removing the yang to our yin, but we are allowing our feminine energy to take the lead, and we're allowing ourselves to break through our own inner stories. We're allowing ourselves to recognize that it was never about doing everything by ourselves. We're allowing ourselves to bust the myth of hyper independence. That needs to go. It's about sisterhood. It's about connection. It's about knowing that we deserve support. And it's about having the feminine breathe new life into our dreams so that we can then take the messy or the bold action needed to manifest them into reality. And so, my loves, I want to finish this juicy AF first episode by telling you a little bit about what it means then to actually be the heroine of your own life. We know what the path of the heroine is now. Path of the heroine is to blaze our own trail, is to transcend limitations and our own stories. It's to bust through that outdated masculine system of power and reintegrate the feminine in a beautiful, healthy, empowered way. And we'll talk so much more about the differences between the wounded feminine and the empowered feminine. And if these terms are all new to you, that's okay too. I'll take it super slow, make sure everything gets explained in time. You just have to trust me. You just have to be open and stick with it. So that old story of us going on like more of a hero's journey, more of a masculine journey is over. Okay. And that quest for achievement and title and material success for material success's sake is no longer juicy. It's no longer giving us what we need. Women are feeling the desire to self-actualize, the desire to actually live from our heart and our soul. Because that old way of doing things has taken too much of a toll, both on our bodies on an individual level, but also our collective body. And what I mean by that is our home, our earth, Mother Earth. We are slowly destroying the only home we've ever known. And the divine feminine is deeply connected to the earth and to the wisdom of nature and the elements. And she is a protectress of the earth. And that's what we're tapping into. So to become the heroine of our own lives means to radically take responsibility for our choices. It means to become a choice maker. And by that, I mean that we can get to choose the meaning that we attribute to the things that happen in our lives. Maybe you've had a year where everything's just gone so fucking wrong. Everything you thought you would manifest didn't show up. Everything that every place you thought you'd be, you didn't get to go to because of restrictions or self-isolation, lockdown, etc. You've missed out on amazing memories or moments you thought you might have. Now, the non-heroine, she puts herself into victim mode and she blames and she allows those events to make meaning of her life that is negative and disempowering. The heroine, on the other hand, knows that she is a choice maker and that she gets to take radical responsibility for her choices. And so when things happen that are unexpected, when the divine plan throws a curveball, she knows that she gets to look at that and say, I get to choose the narrative that I attach to this event. Now, that doesn't mean I don't honor and feel my feelings. And that doesn't mean that I don't allow myself to feel the depth of my disappointment or my grief or my anger and really embody and live that. But it does mean that once I've gone through my process and I've honored that, I get to choose the meaning. I get to choose the narrative. I get to bring out my sword of discernment and my shield of integrity, and I get to stand by my own values. I get to decide what's important to me. I get to decide what type of relationship I have with the divine, with my higher power, with God, with source, with the universe, with my higher self. Is it one of disempowerment, or is it one of empowerment and trust and surrender? So the heroine knows that she has the courage to face her own shadow. She has the courage to look at things as they are and not how she wishes them to be. She deeply invests and devotes her time and her money and her energy into herself, into meditation, into ritual, into relationship and sisterhood, into nature, into play and creativity. Everything that brings out her wild feminine soul. And above all, and most importantly, particularly to my work and to this space, is she knows that she is here to cultivate both a divine feminine queen, wild, wise woman within, and also a really healthy, integrated, divine king, warrior, father figure within. Reparenting is something that the heroine is going to spend, that you as the heroine and that I spend a lot of time focusing on. Because when we reparent ourselves, we take the projections and the blame away from our actual parents or caregivers, and we heal the generational mother and father wounds. And we get to be the one that stops that from moving down through the generations. And so the heroine not only takes responsibility for herself, but she takes responsibility for her entire lineage, for rebalancing masculine and feminine energy within herself, for reparenting herself, for bringing out her soul's gifts and using them to serve the world in some way. And by doing so, she not only changes her own life, she manages to create a ripple effect that goes far and wide and ultimately is going to contribute to rebalancing and saving our planet. And so this work is so much bigger than you, and yet it all starts with you. It's so important. It's so important that through this journey, we are able to speak our desires boldly into existence, to claim our vision, and to know that we have the power to manifest that with the support of Source and sisters and men, and the divine masculine too. That we also have that inner integrated masculine that sets boundaries, that warrior within, that sets boundaries and limits on our energy and protects our energy. And we take responsibility for ourselves and for our family and for our friendships and for our experience of reality, which brings me nicely in a circle. Circle is the representation of the feminine, brings me nicely in a circle back to where I started. I just want to let all of that sink in. That, my loves, is the path of the heroine. And that is why I've called this podcast The Heroine's Path. It's time for us to move into a new system of power, feminine led, and to know that if we're struggling with work or with relationships or with our health or with our purpose, it's not because we can't just go out and get what we want. It's because we are desiring more for ourselves and we're willing to walk the lesser walked path to create it. Holding each other by the hand, putting our arms around one another, shifting into our feminine power, Stopping blaming ourselves, first of all, most importantly. I definitely know that I've done that before and continue to do that. Victim mode, be real. And moving into a state of empowerment, to a state of soulful purpose, to a life of soulful purpose, I should say, and to radiant sovereignty. So I think on that note, I am going to complete. This has been such a juicy and interesting, expansive episode, weaving our way through some of the history of how we have moved and arrived in the space we're in right now, where the old systems are outdated. We're reaching higher. We desire so much more, and we need to start adopting a new way of being. Not the old way of doing, a new way of being, so that we can create our very own heaven on earth. And by that, I mean manifest our wildest freaking desires and get everything we want without the sacrifice, without the struggle. Won't always be easy. I'm not going to lie, won't always be easy, but without the burnout, without the sacrifice to our bodies, making a shift from the mind to the body, and then back again once we need the masculine. But first of all, from the mind to the body, let's get back in our bodies. Let's feel safe. Let's feel supported. Let's feel self-loving. My loves, I will see you in the next episode, and I cannot wait. Thank you so much for sharing space with me today.